what's the word? Kind of like tight section of the level. So it highlights and lights everything else up. And then again, we get to be introduced with one of these paintings, which look a lot like actual paintings that you would find in Italy and Spain. So this game is Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I'm Joe. And for those of you who are just joining again, I'm a level designer. I've been kind of professionally doing it freelance indie for the past 3 years, but I've been doing level design either as like a hobby, serious hobby, or professionally for the past since like 2009, 2010. And basically what a level designer does is we go through and we build the levels, and what's a level designer? We design levels. They're also known as like mappers and stuff, and we make we kind of put together what
Damn it.
that scared me the first time I went through. So level designers basically go through and they determine the how, like, the flow and the pacing. And we'll talk about flow and pacing a bit more again, like right as soon as I'm done here. Determine the flow and the pacing and the implementation of the gameplay mechanics into the world. So earlier I was talking about like flow and pacing. Flow is how the player moves through the world. Pacing is how quickly the player moves through the world. We've been pretty linear so far. Still, it will end up getting more open, so less linear, which is kind of straight A to B type thing. But the pacing is how quickly the player will move through. So quick little like jump scares, kind of like how that trap was. That was one thing that kind of helped slow the player down so that they knew that was what they needed to focus on next. So what we learned in that, I was a little quick with it, was if we shoot these blocks, they break and they drop whatever they have. If they had just dropped the trap and let us walk by it with no reason, we wouldn't have known that right away. So we would have been learning that here, and that's bad. That's not a good introduction to the mechanics. So having it force us to do that again just means that we're going to learn it. In terms of level design, is there a particular game that I think does it best? That's a really difficult question to answer because the level design of a game and how well it does it depends on what it sets out to do. So there's a lot of different ones that are difficult. The Last of Us is a really good one. I've not played The Last of Us. I think Tomb Raider is great. Most of the Dooms have been really, really good. The original Doom is still considered one of the best level designs of any game ever. Half-Life has great things. BioShock Infinite, which I hope to actually do on a later show. BioShock Infinite has some of my favorite level design. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 has great multiplayer deathmatch maps. TF2 has great... Team Fortress 2 has great class-based shooter maps. I still think Age of Empires has better real-time strategy maps than other games in the genre. So this is again another pacing thing. This is something that we didn't want to be rushing through this area very quickly. We wanted to reinforce that it was a dangerous place, and we kind of wanted to give a little bit of a reward to the player for figuring out all of those little tricks that we had them go through. And so that's where like the QuickTime Event trap came up. It harkens back to the first time we saw the trap, and it gave us a chance to very easily shoot it. Like, it gives us plenty of time. We have the bullets. It's right there in front of our faces, and we easily saw it coming. So it's like this, like, it's kind of like this relaxing thing to do, despite the fact that if you miss, you die. Nintendo does this all the time in their Mario games.
Stop. We made it, Dad.
Where they'll introduce a mechanic early on where it's done, where you learn how to do it safely and you can experience it safely. And then when you end the level, you see that mechanic again, similar to how you saw it in the first one. Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a video on Nintendo's level design by Mark Brown, who is the creator of Game Maker's Toolkit. I highly, highly suggest, if you're interested in this stuff, to go watch all of his videos. His boss keys is talking about like the level design of Legend of Zelda. He also has one on Nintendo's design, which is great. All right, so the framing again. This one is a puzzle, so I'm going to talk about this just really quick. When you're doing puzzle design, you want to show the goal of your puzzle to the player as soon as possible, ideally as soon as, like, before they even start the puzzle. And in this case, based on the lighting and the brightness, everything else is dark, and that gold dome is the highest point in the area, and it's the brightest, which is 2 check marks on the I'm very important in this level list. We also see that there's a platform that's moving up and down, so we know that that's probably going to have to be that's probably going to be a thing. And then there's those two little orb things. Those are probably going to be things that we need to worry about. And then you see the slats going up to the gold dome. Those are just like the salmon, like those are salmon ladders, basically. I think is what they're technically called. But those are obviously like we're gonna have to be climbing those. So now we know what we're getting ourselves into. We can now progress, and we have a goal, which is, as the level designer, we want to be able to make it so that the player can get to their goal in a timely manner, in a way that's kind of challenging. So I haven't been using the objective stuff that much, but if you press Q in this game, and I'll probably use it sometimes when I forget where I need to go or if I'm stuck, it will highlight things. I like how this isn't turned on by default, and you can turn it off easily, and it just kind of shows you what you need to do, so it's kind of like a hint cheat system. So we'll just head on over there and get started with that. So if I hadn't done that, probably what would have happened if I hadn't actually pressed Q to highlight this, we're standing right there, we're framed, we see what we have to do. We would have, the only thing we could do was jump off that cliff, which was inviting us to do so, because it had a bit of a runway. Players will always try and use those types of runways. It's a kind of a sly hint at saying, maybe you should go this way. Like, it's like a bit of a prod. And so as we're moving through this puzzle, we come over here. It's almost like it's a AAA game. Do we consider Crystal Dynamics an indie? No. But there are indie games that do this, that do level design, I think, far better than some AAA developers. And I hope to talk about them later on. So, right, so this is where we would have found, if we went exploring, we would have seen the ladders that we can climb over there. And then we would have seen this. Now, we saw this platform, and it was going up and down. And we didn't see this little waterway here when we were at the front. But now we can see it, so we know that this is tied to that. So now we have a sub-goal. We know, all right, so we obviously got to do something with this doorway to raise the water up even more, and it's going to have to do with the platform right above my head. And that's just how kind of this, when you design puzzles, you have the overall goal, and then you have a bunch of littler goals on the inside that you actually have to, that you need to accomplish. And you want to design it in such a way that those are provided, and the easiest way to do that is through line of sight. So with the initial framing, you see the basics, just enough pieces that players get curious, and then they start figuring out what they need to do themselves. Jump over here. So that was, it's a bit of a puzzle. It's not the most challenging one, but it was a bit of a linear puzzle because we knew there was no, like, you didn't have to do any of those things in a certain order. You didn't have to break the brick wall before you jumped on the platform. But that's just how we did it. But you could have done the platform and then broke the brick wall. It was a bit of an open-ended puzzle that we kind of could have done whatever we wanted. Or could have done with however we wanted, I should say. And again, though, we had the pieces to it presented to us beforehand. We just had to put them together. Now, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but as I've mentioned before with lighting, this is highlighted as an important thing. So what we would want to do is go here and climb up this ladder. So if we just go up here, climb up the shelves of dead people, and then we can shimmy over this way, and jump, and then we can eventually we'll make it around this corner, and then we can climb up. Now I don't think I can jump off, but I do want to go back over to that area that we were just in. And let's... Oh, okay. So that was going to teach us. So that's just a quick time event to show us, hey, there's that spike trap. I actually forgot that was there. You'll notice that we can't actually run off these unless we intentionally jump. It's a bit of a hidden mechanic, so it's like you don't prevent yourself from accidentally walking off. Alright, so I want to go back over here, because I talked earlier about little exploration areas, and this is obviously going to be one of them, and I kind of wanted to explore it a bit to see what it was going to give us. So this is in the dark compared to... Hey, what's up? This is in the dark compared to this. So if you're just going through quickly, you would have missed that, or you would have missed this because it was darker. And players usually don't go to where it's dark. It's kind of over the years, gaming has made it so that if it's a darker area, it's usually going to mean a dead end. And what that means in the game itself, it depends and varies. So sometimes a dead end is a bad thing. In this case, it could lead to, well, we get a little bit of lore, which gives us a little bit of experience.
What you say?
My upload should be high enough. It should be at 5 megabytes. Like, I tested it right before I got here, and it was fine. It could just be the setup that I'm using. It's not ideal. I might have to adjust my recording settings a bit. Alright, so we come here and we see this. That's highlighted, so obviously that might be important for us later. And we pick that up. So now we come over here and... Hey, what's up, Alex? So now we're over here and... we're going to see this little bright area over here out of all this darkness. So it's this big contrasting lighting can help direct the player, and it is something that a lot of people consider to be an environmental thing, but it is really, in my opinion, more of a level design thing. Is how you implement lighting into your level directs how the player can go, and that is something that level designers should be doing. Now, it doesn't have to be great lighting, it just has to be enough. Yeah, no, I finished this. I think I've played through this twice, and I played through Tomb Raider 2013. 2013 twice, too. So again, another little dark area just to explore, see what's around here. Again, for exploring, we get some coins, which is a currency that we can use. And if we do that again, we get some more experience. So we're over here, it's bright. This is back from where we jumped off. There's some water over here that we couldn't originally reach. Don't actually recall if there's anything back here. Don't believe so, because we can't dive. Probably going to be, yeah, it looks like it might be a safe pit that you'll fall into. So this was actually, so if we went and explored, back over here. Came through here and explored. We couldn't get here until we highlighted until we filled this whole place up. Like, we wouldn't have been able to get here regardless. So we couldn't skip the puzzle. But if we decided to take this route instead and explore the route that is being kind of designed and lit in such a way that it's not really, it can be kind of like the not direct route. We get a little bit of extra rewards for taking the longest bit, or taking the longest route, but we still end up back at an area where we would have ended up in the first place. So as you can see, there's this big ramp here that I ran up the first time. This is like, it looks like it's just normal ruins, but really the way that they had the markings on it, which, so I can do this one more time. The way that they have the markings here with the white, like kind of the white rubbings, and then usually this white bar, that means that we can do some acrobatic stuff on it. And that's what we've been taught already over and over and over and over again, is that when we see that white type of, like this white edge here, we know that we can probably grab onto it, or we can jump up it, or we should be running up of it. And this motif will be running through the entire game, the whole way through, but in the end, we still end up in the same place where we were. We just took a longer way to get to it. And by taking the longer way, we got, like, what, 50 experience plus a bit of lore tidbits. So there's a lot of things that we got by taking the longer route through this that basically were designed intentionally. This wasn't accidental. That was intentionally designed so that if the player wanted to go and explore, they could. So another quick jump, kind of like the one that we just did. And one last little bit for if you want to explore.
Just inside.
My lord.
Grab that. Come through, and then again we see the white little marks. And those are always highlighted. I actually wouldn't be surprised if art-wise they have a little bit of like a glow attached to them, so that they stand out a bit more. And then again, just some more jumping. So we're doing a lot of stuff that's testing what we already know. And we're not in any time constraint to actually learn how to do that, or to get through this section specifically. So we can take our time to learn and to reinforce how things need to be done. And then finally, before we move on to the next section, again, touch on the lighting here. This is a highlighted platform, so if we were over, I'm not going to go all the way back, but if we were over back where we were, we would have seen this. We would have seen, hey, this is a place we can jump, and then just based on how the pillars here are made, it draws our eye up to this point. So we know that this is probably the exit that we need to make, or need to be moving through. So, again, with the lighting, I knew that there was going to be a trap there because we saw there was a little bit of lighting coming from underneath, and there was the lighting coming from above, highlighting that lighting coming from underneath. So we knew that that was going to be a trap because we learned that earlier. That's going to be a bear trap, which I'm just going to jump over because we saw that already, and it was and that one's glowing, so that's something that you could have missed beforehand. I'm gonna show up one more time because I don't think there was a trap there, but might as well be safe. And then we come on through and we're back to another puzzle. Grab some water here. So with the lighting, so when we come here, we come up, we come through, first thing we see is that platform right in the middle, so that's probably going to be really important. And then the next thing we see is that pillar, another door, which we've already associated. That platform and that door, when they're together, they're going to be moving with each other. So those are things that we keep consistently, that you'll see consistently used throughout the game, even though it might be, even though it might not be, say, artistically coherent maybe later in the game, you'll see that same variant of things as we progress, because you want to keep those types of mechanics consistent. And again, just like the last one, we'll jump, so that kind of harkens back to what we were just on. Because we knew that we had to jump onto the platform beforehand to get to that platform, or to provide water into the area and flood it.